Hi, I'm Danny. I'm a mental health consultant and an author, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to fix anxiety. Start with what it is, what to do to manage it, how to eliminate it, and then finally how to not worry about anything. Particularly, people seem to have a problem worrying about the future or what people think of them. So I'm going to touch on those, and you can apply the same principle to anything. And what I'm actually going to do with you is go through an exercise. So that will shift whatever it is you're worrying about at the moment. So anxiety is a psychological emotion. You have physical emotions such as depression or anger. They're really felt here. Whereas anxiety and stress, they're more psychological. It's my belief that we have stress and anxiety as it is an indication of potential hurt or pain. And depression is the inward version of pain, whereas anger is the outward. So whenever we have an association, which is a clue, which is a link, which is the Pavlov's dog. You know, if you had a bad experience with one of these at some point, every time you see them, it will trigger the response in the body. Okay, so there's two types. You have a temporary state, which could be me seeing one of these and then freaking out, or it can be a chronic state. And the chronic state is when, or more seriously, let's say you've been in a hostile environment, I believe 3 months, 6 months, maybe less, maybe more for some people. What starts to happen is because you're constantly worrying and freaking out and living in fear, your body begins to change. Your mind begins to change. So rather than being a relaxed person and having a relaxed mind, which allows you to visualize clearly, which allows you to feel happier and so many more things, people become rigid and super sensitive, and it's only a tiny thing for it to set off the adrenaline. And I don't need to tell you why that's bad, but you probably will know stress and anxiety is some of the biggest causes not only for unhappiness but ill health. Okay, so the way you fix a chronic condition is to go through a process of reconditioning, a process of change, and I'm going to get to that at the end. And the way you fix an anxious state, a temporary state, and both of these can happen at the same time. It just tends to be, if you already have chronic anxiety, then rather than going from a chronic state, because it's your general well-being, to an anxious state, it's worse, it's very intense, it's panic attacks and paranoia, more extreme versions. So first port of call is to understand, is to learn. An anxious state, movements are very fast, there's a high volume of thoughts. Notice how you are when you get anxious. That's the best way to indicate that you're on it. But you might have been, living scared for so long that you're not that acutely aware yet, but you will be if you begin to pay attention. So the next thing to do is to realize, how are you when you're relaxed? Or if you're not, someone you know. The movement's different, the feeling's different, but where the muscles are tense is different. Things are slower. When you're really relaxed, you talk slower, you think slower. There's no urgency, and it is the answer. And I'm going to get to relaxation in another video. I have to break everything down so it's consumable information. So the first thing to do is to be able to slow down. Is to be able to stop when you start to notice the signs of an anxious state. Less adrenaline. Okay? worrying, moving. It's just constantly filling that up until, you know, you're anxious. So number one, what we've got to be able to do is to have a certainty of mind, because it's all the thoughts that are racing, right? Make decisions. Get certainty in your life. If money's an issue for you, make sure you've got some saved. So every time a bill or something goes wrong, you're not panicking every single time. So that's really important, to have that base level. A lot of people, you know, they spend everything they have. Don't do that. Make sure you have a buffer financially. That's going to take a big difference, create a big difference in your day-to-day living, because it also won't be at the back of your mind. But sit down and take the time. Everybody, well, not everyone, but I see so many people, they never get a break. They're always on their phones, or when they get home then they're watching TV. They're constantly keeping the mind occupied. But you need to stop. You need to be able to sit down and not slouch, but sit upright like you're working, but allow your mind to start offering all these different thoughts. And you've got to take everything out, and there's things you need to decide on and to make decisions, to be definite about your next future actions. Because all unresolved decisions or pressing problems, you know, you can just watch as much TV as you want. It's all going to keep resurfacing. So you need to work through everything and have that certainty of mind, know what you're doing, where you're going. And I mentioned it already, but the second one is stillness of body. Really begin to be still, slow down, take longer, be more conscious in your movements, rather than just autopilot. Yeah, like since World War II, perhaps before, I wasn't around then, it's my belief that we were running, everyone was working at just such a high speed because it was a life or death situation. I see people in offices and warehouses all over, they're still operating like this. It's like because of fear, but it's not sustainable. And as I said, everything you do changes your conditioning. So there's natural energetic cycles. You will become attuned to it. You'll be able to feel it more once you stop thinking so much. Once you get all the worries out of your mind, your consciousness is then free to be aware of different things. So the third thing you're going to do is to control the variables. To be aware, to test the variables and then control them. What you're eating, the people you're around, what the subject is, what you're thinking about, the different environments that you're in. And be aware of how you feel. You need to be so aware of it, like, you know, your heartbeat, your breathing, and from that point, every thought you have is going to be an indication. It's going to be a clue to some past pain. Okay? So we have bottled emotions in our society. We suppress things, and it's all going to come out, and it's constantly activated. There's no escaping it. Anytime you're getting anxious, it's linking back to this past pain. So you will be able to get all of it out through the process I'm going to explain in these videos. But you break everything down, so it's be aware of every different thought and what it's linked to, and then I'll show you in this process in one moment what to do once you find something that you're particularly worried about. So the fourth thing you need to do is you need to learn about anxiety, you need to learn about relaxation, you need to learn about the body, and you need to learn about the mind, how they all operate. Connect with me, subscribe to the email. This is my book, it's coming out, and you can have a free copy. And subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, because all of this is going to be in the YouTube. You can see I'm new to this, and but I have to break it down. I've tried before just to upload videos and people can't understand it. I have to learn to be able to, this is new for me, to be able to communicate complicated information and make it simple. So daily, for however long, I'm going to be uploading these, so make sure that you get a notification either by email or YouTube, and I'll tell you everything you need to know to reverse your mental health. That's not a problem. Until that point, just keep learning, because you know what you don't know hurts you, and number two, like, the faster you learn it, the faster you can turn everything around. So let's start you off with this. Oh yeah, one more point. So, for example, just small things, and you'll learn this from your own experience too. This was all from my experience. This book was written, I had a bad back injury, slipped disc, and it turns out I had a bent spine, from years of poor posture, from being anxious, and every morning I would get up and I'd run barefoot around the park in Byron Bay, and I had a notepad with me. You've got to keep a notepad on because you've got to collect all your different thoughts. And everything comes out, and eventually you have presence, you have an empty mind, but you start learning things about how not only the mind works, but how your mind works. For example, if you're worrying about something, the mere act of focusing on it, well, one is could be a waste of time if it's not active problem solving. Two, it's going to create more of those thoughts. You know, like if I was just focusing on this, and this was my phobia, I would be worrying about it attacking me, about it getting more of these things and picking a fight with me, and the thoughts will just keep on going, and you'll just stay in that state. So you've got to learn to just snap out and just to be able to shake your head off that thought and leave it alone and do something else. Because the mind is, you know, there's so much information around us, there's so much of everything. You have to be able to have that discipline in mind. But if you didn't know that focusing on a thought is just going to increase more of the adrenaline, then you'd be stuck there. You'd keep having this problem. So it's this external awareness, this external learning from YouTube videos and things like that and books, but there's also internal awareness, your own knowledge, your own wisdom, and you know, you've got so much life experience and there's so much treasure in your mind and so much you've learned. But where we're in a very distracted society, there's so many, like literally millions of people everywhere and things happening all at once, you can't comprehend it. So just the nature of how people are operating, they're not meditating. There's a reason, you know, Indian people have been saying for 5,000 years, do yoga, meditate. And by this process of, I recommend daily going inside your mind and capturing the golden gems, you rebuild your mind, you rebuild your life, you rebuild your body, you invent things, you think of great decisions and stuff like that. So anyway, when you are a relaxed person, you don't worry. So I wrote that because I said to you, right, this is how you don't worry about the future. Okay, if you're relaxed, you wouldn't have to worry about the future. It would be, this is how you don't speculate too gently about how things could go wrong. That's what you would do if you were relaxed. But if you're anxious is a worry. You know, so once you're relaxed, you don't worry about the future. You can still have, like, you know, gentle, bad daydreams, but it's not that worry, it's not that intensity. Like, emotions are measured in different intensity. What we need to start doing for you is to get that intensity down over time. And you do that by exercises like this. So, I can't think of a better name for it, but I've called this one Future Anxiety Remover. Now, fear only has power over you while there is something you are scared of. So what we need to do is take the power out of that fear of pain. And the best way to do this is this next exercise. Fear controls you as it prevents you doing, and it also causes fears of stress. So there's two big reasons to get rid of it. With the future, we get anxious that something will happen, and it is an idea which is a picture in the mind. And that can be followed with another picture in the mind, or sounds, which is what we think are the consequences of the first picture, which may or may not be true. For example, if you really don't like your job and you think, if I quit this job, and you picture losing your house and all these different things happening, like all the time you're worried about that, you know, obviously you make sure you have something else to go to, but you don't know how things are going to be. And this is a really bad example. But anyway, it turns out that things aren't necessarily true anyway. But it's very real. But what you need to be able to do to take the power out of it is to intentionally think about these scenarios at a different time until there's no anxiety. Yeah, so you'd look at something like this and you'd just keep playing the picture in your mind. Okay, so if I did lose my house, you know, what would that mean? We would have to start again. And to take the pain out of it, because it's not necessarily the thing that happens, because even if you lost your house, you know, that could be the best thing ever. You end up going travelling and doing all these different things, and in the end you end up making more money because you wasn't spending so much on a mortgage for a house that might be too big for you. So it's untrue, first of all, is my point. It's not necessarily true what you're worrying about. It's an illusion. It's something that hasn't even happened yet. And secondly, it's not the problem, it's how you feel about the problem. So you want to spend 20 minutes, 40 minutes and just looking, and you have to look at it, right? You have to be able to force yourself to see some of these things and to play it through, because people are like, they deny it because it's painful. And some people think, you know, the whole law of attraction thing, that you're creating something if you think of it. It's not necessarily true. But what you're trying to do is to, because it's going to pop into your head randomly, whatever you're worried about, and it's going to attack you. It's going to cause adrenaline. So you want to be able to, when it does randomly pop in your head, to be like, oh yeah, okay, well if that happens, okay, Sarah. And then what you find by doing these kind of disciplines, with whether it's you worry about what people think about you or any of these different things, and you take these few things out, one, you become so much more relaxed, two, you stop worrying about things, and three, it gives you a whole new freedom of life, a whole new, whole new relaxation and way of being. It's marvellous. So you want to spend a good 20 minutes or 40 minutes doing this, and just seeing that until the point where there's no reaction in the body, until there's no worry, until test it later again, the same thing knocks in your mind, it really doesn't matter if that happens. It would help you to write, to draw boxes, and to actually write what you can see in your mind. Then, part two, you want to include solutions to relieve the anxiety. Okay? Because once the fear's gone, the worry's gone, you can think more creatively. If you're stressed or if you're anxious, that part of your brain's cut off. You can't visualise as well or anything like that. So then you write solutions to these problems. And different, because as people don't think past, I think because of the junk food and all these other chemicals, and just being in a rush all the time, people's brains are limited. So, say the example, you lose your house, okay, then that means you can go to Indonesia. You always wanted to go to Indonesia. That's just one option. Okay, you need to keep thinking. You need to think past that. You need to be right. Okay, and if not Indonesia, then do you know what? I always wanted to get into recruitment anyway, so I'm gonna do that. And then you have like 3, 4, 5, 6 options, and these are all different solutions. And then even when the worry comes into your head again, like the other solution is there ready. And that goes, relaxation, or excitement. So you're setting up a chain in your mind. How you, and also solutions, but how you can create good things, but also deal with problems. I remembered the last bit. Okay, so that was on people and on the world. Worrying about these two things. Like economically, for the world, people are worried about coronavirus and things like that at the moment. I'm just going to talk about it like in terms of health. Obviously, you're going to be worried, but economically, there are things, got a lot of different things going on. But it doesn't help you to worry. Like, it never ever works. All it does is make your mind less capable of coming up with solutions, and you think, I'm getting a lot done, but then you can't work the whole day because you're exhausted, like very early in the morning till late at night. But you can do that if you're chilled out. So you just need more information. Like, I'm going to talk about worldview and perception because it's a big subject. The same way I'm going to talk about people and your own identity in another video, because it's complicated. But you need to just start off by accepting the fact that you're only living in an illusion anyway. That's just your ideas. And as always, there are many reasons to worry today. You know, even before coronavirus and before businesses started shutting down, people have been starting to worry really seriously the last 10, 15 years with inflation and house prices and things like that. And that's one view of it. But the other view of it is, some people say the complete opposite. Look at these phones we've got. I would not be talking to you. I'm from working class background. If it weren't for the internet and all these other different things, there's no way I'd be in Ibiza and or going to had the chance to go to university, or be able to know so much about this stuff and to be able to make a living doing this kind of thing. You know, so there's as many reasons there are to worry. There's always enough to be relaxed about things, about how most things are done. Like, we've got roads now, we've got hospitals. So in the grand scheme of things, it's all right. It's just your fear, it's just your worry about whatever it is, and a lot of it's not even true. And like, look, and I learned this the hard way. I learned this when I had bad back injury, everything went really wrong for me, and it's only when you get to the point that you can be completely happy with nothing, just being, you don't need anything. It's like the Buddhist spiritual thing. It's true. So whatever you're particularly worried about, state of the world, you know, one, recognize it's an illusion. Two, because your mind can't do that. It can't see all things at once. If you was to fly up high in the sky and look down, you'd be like, oh wow, there's a lot of great things going on, a lot of positive movements happening. But you can't see it because you haven't got the information. You're not connected to everything that's going on. We have one main media channel. But again, with Facebook, things like this, it's all accessible. So you just need to get your focus onto the right things. Be aware of the problems, prepare for the problems, you know, work hard and all those other things. But just, this needs to be like this, and everything you do worry about, it needs to be actively solved, productively solved. Okay? And the only thing that I've found has really kept me in terms of not worrying about what people think of me, and also about about the way the world is to try your best. Because as long as you're trying your best and to do the right thing, you know, when you always do the right thing and you always try your best, then that's it. There's no excuse in your mind. Your mind can't go anywhere else into worrying about anything, because you've done your best. You know, you've done what you felt was the right thing to do. So it's those two things. And obviously growing as well. And if you're trying your best, you are growing as a person. You know, you've got to become self-disciplined. You've got to become, you know, aware of yourself, how you're making other people feel, you know, and learning. And, you know, you will upset people by accident, but as long as you learn from that, then that's okay. You know, and about people liking you in particular, it's like, look, you can't control. People are going to take what you do wrong. First of all, they're going to think, you know, you did or said something, and take it just because of their own perception completely the wrong way. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. You can't be, even if you think you've done everything and said everything right or whatever, you know, people will still, everybody, single person on this planet is hallucinating to a certain extent. So it's that acceptance of, okay, right, well, whatever. And if you get another chance to talk to those people, mate, you know, you can communicate more succinctly. But look, that's the thing. If you've got an awareness about how you're communicating and what you're saying, and being careful with your language, you know, getting a good vocabulary, you can be sure in what you are communicating to other people. Because it is important what people feel, and it is important what people think. You know, you can't deny that. People say don't worry, but people have feelings. So you've got to be a good communicator, and that's all you can do. And you know, some people they're just completely negative anyway, or they're not very nice people, and it doesn't matter. They're not going to like anyone. You know, if they judge you by their values and things like that, they're projecting onto you. They have their own hate and their own dislike inside them, and it's just, you know, they're looking through that lens anyway, so there's nothing you're going to be able to do. And from my experience, like the nicest people, the people that are really worth knowing and having around anyway, are understanding. So even if you, like, you know, slip up or whatever, they realise people make mistakes and things like that, and you know, and they're you know, they're nice people. As long as you're nice, and that's from doing the right thing, you know, as long as you work hard, and that's, you know, doing your fair bit, anyone in their right mind won't have a problem with you. So express yourself, and you have to be able to fully love yourself as well, you know, and then you don't worry if people don't like you or not, or whatever. When you fully love yourself, there's a process to doing it. You can't just love yourself, you know. As I said, you need to work hard, you need to do your best, you know, and work through your own perceptions, work through all the trauma, what other people's projections, you know, the idea someone's a stranger, they, you know, or whatever. Is there's just so much just in perceptions and stuff anyway, and you've got to work through your mind, you've got to heal your mind, and yeah, and that's just an important one. And realising people, you know, are hallucinating is quite a big thing. Like when people, you know, have been traumatised a lot, and trauma is more common than the really strong ones that people, you know, you think of when you say that word. But you know, it's automatic, it's panic. It's for example, if you buy something and you check your change, do you do that and say to yourself, I'm checking my change because people make mistakes, or I'm checking my change because that person might have intentionally shortchanged me? And you can be a nice and fairly compassionate, understanding person, but there's a good chance you could pick that second option. It's the thoughts in the mind that's the problem, not the reality. And you've got to remember, that's what people are always, you know, they're always looking through this lens, and it's a clouded lens a lot of the time. So look, you know, state of the world, not particularly great at the moment. State of mental health, like, there's so many people with mental health issues and they have absolutely no idea, like real no clue that they're of their own perceptions, and it's a crazy world. But I'm very optimistic. I think both of these things, both the mental health and the economy and things, are progressing in a good way. And yeah, you have to be active in your seeing the world. Okay, see ya.